Hi, my name is Rolph Payet. I come from the Seychelles, which is an island group archipelago in the middle of the Indian Ocean on the east coast of Africa. And I'm special advisor to the President of the Republic. And in my job, I actually advocate a lot and promote a lot small island states issues, especially to deal with oceans. As you know, small islands interact a lot with the oceans, and some of the world's oldest civilizations have actually come out of the islands. For example, if you look at the Pacific Islands, there's about 3,000-year-old traditions. And suddenly we find ourselves, we were so isolated before, as you know, islands are far away from the mainland, and sometimes we have to fly over 9, 10, 15 hours before we can even find, land, which we call an island. But the problem is with the intense globalization and consumer society that we have here, consumption of fossil fuels, generation of heavy fertilizers in agriculture and all the other things, we felt that we were isolated from these issues. But increasingly we can see that we are not really isolated because we share the same seas, the same oceans, and we share the same atmosphere. So whatever the bigger countries put into the atmosphere, put into the ocean, eventually ends up into the islands, onto the islands. And I'll just give you two simple examples. The first example is whales. Now, there's a research been done on the skin of whales. So they took a little bit of the skin of the whales, took it in the lab and analyzed it for pesticides. And they found DDT in whales, even down in Antarctica, which is so far away from any human activity. So it shows you that the chemicals that we are using in our culture and elsewhere, or even hormones in animals and elsewhere, is actually transported over thousands of kilometers. The other one is waste. Now, if you visit some of the islands in the Seychelles, which has no one living on there, it is so far away, like 1,000 kilometers from anywhere, one thing you will see on the beaches is huge amount of waste. Fishing nets, slippers, very common, empty bottles which have been consumed elsewhere, which means that all the waste that we don't pick up, when the floods come, when the rain comes, it is washed into the sea. And these float around, and we have a huge amount of waste floating around the oceans. And when they encounter the islands, then they get stuck there. So as you can see, we are connected in the world, and the problem of climate change means that we have to do something about it, because otherwise those islands will go under. And that's basically the majority, reason why I travel to such big conferences, and why I am actually the chair of the SEEDS working group who has prepared this policy brief for this conference, is to bring first awareness, call for action, because we need action by the bigger nations, by the bigger countries, to address some of these critical issues such as climate change, invasive species, and exploitation of resources, which in fact impacts on the small islands. The other big issue which we are facing today is, of course, the delimitation of the maritime boundaries, and this is a regulatory regime or a global convention which gives rights to the different nations of the planet to own certain parts of the ocean. So you can own a part of the ocean. We've given ownership to these parts of the ocean so that they can be managed, so that the fisheries are not, fished, all the fish is not fished out. So in a sense, this is a big priority for small island states. But without the resources, without the adequate time, many small island states, in fact all of them, have not submitted yet the boundary delimitation requirements. And as a result, with the deadline in 1 year, there's been a lot of discussion on how we can get those submissions to the United Nations done.